She's convicted for doing these things, teaching 14-year-old girls how to give him fellatio. She was convicted of these things in a court of law. So this is not even, I can't even say allegedly because she was convicted. Allegedly is if there's no proof, if you're guessing and you don't want to say anything wrong. But these are the things she was convicted for. Welcome to the Think Tank, where we use critical thinking, deductive reasoning, just a pinch of common sense to draw unbiased, logical conclusions. Today, we're here once again to talk about all of the crazy stuff going on in America. There's an abundance of it. Trump keeps us busy. Speaking of Trump, I'm here with MAGA conservative, Trump supporter, the Honorable Dion Powell. I'm going to give him a chance to introduce himself. And Dion?
Last night in Ghana, Leo, I'll be back in the States to be with the Bronx Conservative Party because I'm needed back desperately what's going on there politically with this mayor's race.
Here we go. I let AI figure out what topics were going to be important. So AI made the decision of what was going on. I told Gemini, no, I used ChatGPT, excuse me, arrange the order according to what is happening in the news at the moment at the highest rate. And what we come up with is politics, Trump, elections, and gerrymandering. I must say, I'm completely shocked and appalled. Oh, wait, no, that's the same thing I've been talking about being the number one thing for 2 weeks. So, no, actually, I think the number one thing I said would be the fact that they're trying to take away the black vote altogether by removing the second section of the Voters Registration Act. But this all falls into a lump. It's all together. It's all about controlling the elections. And here we have election disputes, gerrymandering battles, and Trump's role in past, future contests remain in the headlines. Judge releases a 180-page brief about the election being stolen and Donald Trump's attempt to flip it after, because according to this judge, with all of the evidence that's been compiled, Trump lost the election against Biden. And he knew it. He was lying and tried to steal it. And that is what's going on in the court of law right now. This is done. This is not conjecture. It's been proven now in the court of law. Republicans claim Democrats are now doing more gerrymandering with mid-decade redistricting being taken place by the Republicans because, generally gerrymandering or redistricting is saved for the beginning end of the decade. Mid-decade gerrymandering is, or previously was off the table. So let's talk about some of this as we have other topics in here. Let's get rolling. Let's start with election disputes, gerrymandering, battles, and Trump's role in past and future contests. So, what is your opinion on all of that?
Well, my friend, if you allow me to share my screen, I'm going to take my opinion and feelings out of it and just give you the facts and as I see them.
Well, that sounds amazing. Please do.
All right, my friends and family, you know me. I try to put the facts over the feelings, and I'm just going to say this as much. It seems as though President Trump, like a lot of other people on this side, believe there are a lot of incongruities that lead up to the 2020 election, and it's a census blunder that happened in 2020 with the count on the President Trump's watch. So, as you can see from this article here, and we remove that. It's titled Census Blunder May Tip 2024 to Democrats. Now, in 2020, The Census Bureau acknowledged that 14 states had significantly missed counts in the 2020 census. See if you know this is apparent here. Among the overcounted states are who? Hawaii, Delaware, Rhode Island, Minnesota, New York, and Massachusetts. Five of these six voted for Joe Biden in this year's presidential election. The undercounted states were Texas, Illinois, Florida, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Arkansas. Five of these six voted for Donald Trump. Now, why is that important? Now, I know that's the Hill, so that's the right leaning platform. Let's go to Fox News because maybe now Fox News recently reported that Dems face scrutiny over congressional representation gaps in blue states and don't have clean hands when it comes to these redistricting efforts like Texas. Now, according to this article here, based on the lines drawn, Trump won nearly 46 of the vote in New Mexico, for example, but none of the state's three seats are held by Republicans. That's a fact number one. For example, a lot of states overwhelmingly voted for Trump, but because the lines are drawn in such a way, those votes wouldn't represent if they were drawn differently for the Republicans, if that makes sense. That's everybody's favorite
No, that doesn't make
hero
sense.
last minute.
Actually, it leaves me with a question.
We
Like,
start,
I
let
like
me,
to use common
let me
sense.
start.
So let's use common sense. How do you draw
Based
lines
off
that
the facts,
erase
right?
people? How do you uh, how do you
No,
draw
no,
lines
no.
that erase people? There would literally be some representation, even if it was minute, even if it was only one seat. Some representation would have to be there if there are people there. You couldn't draw lines that make them invisible, or am I incorrect? Would
Yes, because remember these lines, like we know, are based on, let's say, civil rights, in which we want more black representation. So the lines we draw are obscure to make sure all the people that identify as black, they are within certain borders. And we only vote what? Overwhelmingly Democrat. So if the lines are drawn in such a fashion that includes nothing but mostly black people, of course those votes would add up to equate to a blue representative. However, what Greg Abbott is arguing in Texas especially is that the census actually was done incorrectly in 2020 under Donald Trump's watch by the Democrats and other states overall in the Census Bureau. And number two, the way the lines are drawn, there's no way for a Republican can actually win. But now that he's going to redraw the lines, he's saying now it should be much fairer because now it's based on political party representation across the board. It seems though Texas is overwhelmingly Republican, it should work out. Unlike Massachusetts, which has zero Republican congressional representation, even though it has nearly 500,000 Republicans in the state. So that's what they're saying is the incongruity of states that are blue, which have more Republican representation, but the lines that's drawn so obscure that those seats can't be Republican, if that makes sense. Understand?
I understand what you're presenting. However, it is a well-known fact that
Uh-oh.
even Governor Abbott did not want to redraw the lines because they admitted to the fact that the lines were drawn right until Trump stepped in. As a matter of fact, if we're going to do that, I guess Texas leaders have repeatedly
Sure.
claimed the state's voting maps are race blind until the Trump DOJ disagreed. This is the Texas Tribune. And you'll see that there's a lot of
Okay.
articles. So up until now, apparently, Texas was fine with the lines, even though the Democrats have always stated that it favored the Republicans and that they were already gerrymandered enough. These five new would be gerrymandered to a further extent than what the Democrats said were already gerrymandered lines, and Republicans seem fine with, which, again, if I'm going to use deductive reasoning, I would say probably means that if they were happy with it, they were already getting over.
Well, the president is showing extreme leadership in hindsight with learning from the sins of the past. For example, President Trump is actually going after the banks that debanked people for their political ideologies, like himself. So all the millionaires and billionaires that get kicked out from all the banks, President Trump is calling for an investigation of those banks for discrimination based on political affiliation. Now back to this. President Trump again said, hey, I recall the census was done incorrectly in favor of Democrats, not the Republicans. I want to use this as sound proof that, representation for us, my political party, is not correct. Now, I can go back to what I showed previously to another paragraph, which is, where is it? Where is it? Oh, here we go. This paragraph also highlights Connecticut voted nearly 42% for President Trump, but had no seats that the Republicans won in 2024. Now, why is that important? If you have 42% of a state voting Republican, logically, you should at least have one Republican win, if that makes sense. For example, if you're voting down ballot, theoretically, the president at the top of the ticket, you should have at least one Republican congressperson win below that, if that makes sense, Leo. Understand?
That does make sense.
Yes, because you've been in the flip game a little bit, so you understand how slates operate from governor on down, mayor on down, where these zombies go Democrat, straight down the line. So those add up to push other people over the top.
Oh, even though it's big enough, right? Appeals court strips
Keep
voters'
it.
ability to file voting rights acts in lawsuit in 7 states. And that's the long and short of it. That is what's happening. So what does that mean in English? But let's look at Section 2 where they're targeting now. Section 2 of the Voters' Rights Act prohibits voting practices that discriminate on the basis of race, color, or membership in a language minority group. This includes challenges to election systems or redistricting redistricting schemes that make it harder for people of color to have an equal say in elections. The current landscape surrounding Section 2 litigation is evolving rapidly with several ongoing battles and shifts in judicial interpretation. So, again, for the record, this is for entertainment and educational purposes only. I am not an attorney. But what the plain language of that seems to be to me is if you're black and you want to vote, this protects you. There's lawsuits trying to take that ability away. That seems to me to be horrifying.
Well, guess what, Leo? You read a key statement in there called redistricting schemes. Now, just like the Department of Labor, that lady got fired because the numbers were wrong. President Trump and the Republican Party and conservatives around the country believe that the census was done incorrectly. And they were talking about representation in Congress. These voters can still vote and have all their rights. It's just that the redistricting scheme has been obscured because the 2020 census was incorrect when it comes to proportional positioning of those lines. So then on top of that, they're arguing that this is politically motivated and discriminatory based on political ideology. And it seems as though this may concern what you're saying. There's a war on DEI. Then they're saying, you know what? This is racist in and of itself because it discriminates against everybody else and particularly favors one group of people. There you go.
Okay, so we're going to do this again because apparently your redirection skills are on par with
How?
that of Trump. So we're going to
Read.
actually use. So in second grade, up until second grade, children learn to read. Third grade and beyond, you read to learn. So let's read and see what it says. There's a conjunction here. A conjunction being something that joins two oh gosh, the word is eluding me. Parts of a sentence. It's eluding me. It's cool. It's not even important. Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, or the VRA, prohibits voting practices that discriminate on the basis of race, color, or membership in a language minority group. So when you add the or in, Section 2 protects race, Section 2 protects color, and it protects people that speak different languages. The or makes what you
Right.
said irrelevant.
But
because
continue after the period, Leo. You have to continue after the period. This includes what?
it doesn't. Okay, so what you're doing is very clever, but maybe you don't
I
understand.
am clever.
Perhaps you don't understand, so I'm going to explain. It
Oh,
in, being that it includes doesn't mean everything else prior to that was excluded.
I didn't
Includes
say that.
doesn't say it's included, but that doesn't mean it's the only thing included. Because it's included doesn't mean everything else that I said wasn't so. It protects the right to vote for people's race. That was literally put there because
Plus all
black
the other
people
tether tack-ons.
it was literally put there because black people didn't have the right to vote. That's literally the reason it was made. So they're taking it away, is literally taking away the law that makes it okay for black people to vote. Full stop.
No, it has nothing to do with this. It has nothing to do with this. And you stopped, which includes that's a lie by omission, Leo.
It's
It
not a lie by
includes
omission.
it includes redistricting schemes. What does that mean? That means that the discriminatory practices that happen, if you think about it, are based on the 2020 census, which the fact is there were undercounted representation, which means that in certain states, if you think about it, Black people were undercounted because they were in a red state. Isn't that discriminatory?
All I heard was blah 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 blah. Because you talked over the point and tried to get around the or. It didn't say and, it said or. What that means is all of this, any one part of that, race or whatever else you said, which is great,
Well,
that's part of
Leo,
it also. But it
but,
doesn't take
but
away.
Leo, but Leo, remember the subject matter we're arguing is redistricting. So you gotta take the part that's highlighted there that pertains to redistricting. Wouldn't you agree to link both subject matters that we're talking about, which is redistricting and the evil racism?
Well, no, I guess racism isn't evil to you. That's fine. I accept that. But it all matters because they're all part of the same scheme. Gerrymandering. Donald Trump literally called up Greg Abbott and was like, give me 5 seats.
Oh God.
Give me 5 beautiful seats. Because, give me 5 beautiful seats. And Greg said yes. Up until that point, Greg was like, you know, I think that there was no race used to draw these lines. Everything's fine with complying with the Voters Registration Act, blah, 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 blah. He got a phone call from Donald, and all of a sudden, it's not fair. White people are not being counted. It's because of this Section 2 of the Voters Registration Act. We got to get rid of this because it's causing us to not be able to redistrict. That is the reason for the VRA lawsuit. That's how it ties together.